I have character paralysis. In October, Universus, the IP-based fighting game inspired TCG, is having its EU qualifiers for Worlds in Sheffield. Please come along if you can. This will be where the best players in the EU will come to face one another for the opportunity to secure a spot for Worlds. Well, best players in the EU and me. So that's what today's video is going to be. I need to talk about all the options laid out in front of me to begin to narrow down what I want to play in October. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. As it stands right now, there's around 200 characters in standard rotation. That's way too many to go over in one video, or at least if I want to be able to release this video by October, that is. So I need to begin to narrow them down. To know what character I want to play, I need to know what I want to achieve at this event. The comment about best players in the EU and me wasn't just a self-deprecating joke, it's a mindset. I know that I don't have it in me to win, but what I do have is an opportunity. An opportunity to potentially cause an upset or throw people off their game. Any old fool can go on UVS Ultra and look at the winners of the past regionals and throw together a powerful deck with the current meta-dominating characters. But that's not what I want. I want an out-of-pocket, unorthodox, obscure-ish pick that people either don't know about or maybe relying on an older strategy that hasn't been seen for a while. And yes, I know that saying I want some surprise pick but then making a video about it defeats the purpose of a surprise, but a girl's allowed to be a hypocrite sometimes. So now we have an idea of what deck I want to make. A non-meta deck that focuses more on unorthodox strategies or interactions, or if they are a meta character, either current or past, we find a way to make them weird. With that in mind, let's get to eliminating characters. My first way of whittling them down is to remove all Clash and Starter deck characters. These characters, while falling in the bounds of out-of-pocket picks, are far too restrictive to do anything with, so unfortunately I can't be repping Jun despite how much I like her as a character. Then, as we've already spoken about, we're removing meta characters. At this point I need to talk about what I consider meta, and this will likely be where some people have some issues with my definition. To me, meta characters are characters that you can do a lot with little punishment. Characters that, if you play a specific archetype, people will just say, why aren't you running insert meta character here instead? They're also mostly characters that feel so oppressive to play against, and, in my opinion at least, not fun to play as. There's a video in the works right now which goes over my ideas of meta and what it means for card games, so if you have issues with what I'm saying here, hopefully that video will address it whenever it comes out. And the way you can see if a character's meta or not is purely down to their placement in events. Pre-errata Titan of Terror was a meta character, Mothra is a meta character, Rhino 3 is a meta character, Precon Rodan is a meta character. I'd also like to say that I have nothing against these characters nor the people who play them. These characters are great, that's why they win events, but they're not the characters I want to play, nor are they the kind to give me the deck I want for October. With these two criteria, we can eliminate about 50 or so characters, but we need to do more. October will likely be the final large event I play before rotation happens next year, so while I'm not limiting myself to characters that will rotate out, I will be looking at those which will be with more favour. I then scoured every character that was left and arrived at 19 potential characters, unless something changes and I happen to find another character between the video's publication in October. I would have loved to make this around 20 characters, but the video is already going to be long enough. As much as I want to be able to make decks for each of these characters and then go over them in excruciating detail, that's just not feasible. So the way this will work is I'll talk about the character a bit, a few of the cards that I think would be fun, and just the general strategy. This will also be in no real order, just the order that I added them to my list. I love this character. I go on about it in every video, but Life Gain is such a fun archetype in this game, and the hard cap on your maximum health makes it a fun balancing game of whether or not to take a hit or burning yourself to enable it. While she has no heal on face, she does have a way of burning herself and then rewarding you for healing with the +1 to your check. So there's two ways we can go about with this character. We can make her a combo character, playing cards like Harness Undeath, Mids of Despair and Tyrant Rave, like I went up against in local championships. Alternatively, and this is where I think it could be very fun, with micro healing, you can stack those +1 buffs to build her like an Attack on Titan or Godzilla character, defeating the Colossus Titan, humanity's final stands, or even Titanic Leap being huge attacks that could catch people off guard. I think both would be quite fun, with the latter being a little bit harder to pull off, but I like Diviner as a character and I've always wanted to build and play her, plus with her rotating out, that's all the more reason to consider her. I like Pumat for one reason and one reason alone. He cheats out Massive Mutant Machine, and that's what this deck would be built around. If I were to run Pumat, he'd be rocking attacks like Pristine Swordplay and Dangerous Gambit, being able to ready Massive Mutant Machine to get those big scary numbers. Add in a bit of extra card draw to make up for his abilities, and I think he's a fairly competent character. I don't have much more to say because the strategy is very straightforward and it's just built around my favourite card in the game. Invite Hell, Stabbing Dagger, Dimensional Sphere. Not as good at one thing, and that's not letting you play the game. Fantastic mill character, which I love, but is one that a lot of people already know about. Due to her reputation of being a mill character and thus a predictable playstyle, I fear this may end up being one that I go for if I genuinely had no other options or couldn't create a better deck, but it's one I'm definitely keeping in mind. And here's where we get into the why wouldn't you just play X part. We have a card pool clogging character, and so the immediate question is, why Leatherhead over Bridget or Biollante? And to that, there's two reasons. Reason one, we have access to fire, which means knockout punch. That's not a fantastic reason, as I think building a deck around just one card doesn't really work out in a lot of cases, but the card is, in my opinion, very good for this archetype, and one that the other two cannot get. Reason two is that card pool clogging happens from the very start of your turn. Before you even play your first attack, your rival already has one or maybe even two cards in their card pool. With Acidic Sludge, 1 Ocean Buddies and 1 Legendary Bandit, that's potentially 5 cards in their card pool before you've even moved on to blocking the first attack. I think this could be a fairly underrated character that people could be sleeping on. I have a lot of conflicting feelings on this character. I like what he does, I just think it's a bit degenerate. The high turn I would be running would be very similar to Not, and another character that will come up later on. I think removing cards your opponent has is very funny, but it is a slow playstyle too. When the high turn I've built pops off, he really pops off, but it's surviving up until that point that is the issue here. He's a niche gimmick character that has a long startup, but would potentially shake things up if he works as intended. Isla is on my consideration list just for the Hadir Invite Hell loop. This is a very simple brain dead deck with just these two attacks and Hunter's Ally, the latter to bring out an Onyankopon or Demon Plants. The rest of the deck is just form, draw a card, or variations upon that. Not a fun pick, but hey, if it works, it works. I like burn decks, but we have very good burn characters in Standard right now, and Hedora, in my opinion, is the only one that can consistently and repeatedly deal additional damage on hit. All other burn characters either has it as a once per turn ability or a commit cost. Hedora also gets access to Wine Opener, which isn't the best burn card, but it's pretty damn good. Pair that with Harness on Death, Toothy Bite, and Weight of Responsibility for a really good burn package. Then with Hedora's own foundations with +4 block mods to hit on mill, giving him a hefty amount of on-face burn damage, and also deflect to reduce the incoming damage too. He's no meaner too, but he's probably the best burner we have currently. He's a simple dinosaur, but that's what I like about this guy. He would be a very generic deck, not doing anything too wild, mostly throws and as much power token generation as possible, and then end with a Shin Hashigeki. It's not spectacular, and a whole lot of people would have seen some variation upon this, but with a bunch of new throws in Tekken, it could be worth something. I just like the character and haven't gotten a chance to play him yet. And Guerus would likely be towards the bottom of the list, so if I do end up playing him, that's a sign that something's gone very wrong. I've already made a video on this guy, so if you want to see what the deck would look like, just go watch that. But I doubt much would change about the list as well. Double lift kicks from Tekken 8 is probably the only thing since local championships and now that's worth switching out in my opinion. I did like All Might, I just think there could be more out there for me than sticking with just the one character. The only Tekken character on this list. With Tekken being the most recent set, I think it's what a lot of people will be playing, and so I doubt there'll be much I can do to innovate on the characters from the set. But I've not seen a lot of people talk about Reina that much, and that's surprising. Sure, she's not going to break the game or whatever, but I think the revive mechanic is fun and the speed gain on face is very neat. From what I've seen, people have been writing her off because of the revive only bringing you back to 5 health, and that's just one more attack which would likely kill you. But to me, that doesn't matter. You shouldn't rely on the revive to win you the game. You can find weaker characters who have done fairly well with what little they already have. I'd run her similar to Hedora with Harness on Death and Wine Opener, but with a few more life gain cards such as Wound Restore, Shikasta, Faultless Defense, and maybe even Soup. Also being an heir allows good staples like Mondo Gecko and Team Hero. If I'd bring any Tekken character, it would be her. Now here's an oddball pick. Like Divana, we have two approaches. For one, we could have a fun deck building challenge about finding all these foundations that could work with his response, and also foundations that can ready upon being committed so you can keep doing his first enhance. Alternatively, we could make a dumbass 8-card deck that's mostly defensive foundations, assets, and actions, with a bunch of momentum adding abilities, with 4 copies of Spirit Sword Ultimate as our only attack. It's stupid and wouldn't work, but it's certainly an option. I know, this is a meta character. The things you can do with this character are nuts, but as I stated at the start, I'm fine with playing meta characters if I can make them weird. Death Rattle is a foundation with the response, after one or more of your backups is destroyed, your rival loses a health. Gravekeeper's Authority, Blitz, spend 1 momentum, build all party backups from your discard pile, remove those cards at the end of your combat phase. There exist 6 different party backups, all with the unique keyword. If you built all of these at the same time, all but one of them would be destroyed. The best case scenario here is that on one copy of Death Rattle, if all the maximum possible amount of backups were destroyed, your opponent's taking 18 damage. Add a second copy of Death Rattle, and there's only 3 characters in Standard that could survive 36 burn damage. Add a third, and nobody's surviving that. Throw in a bunch of other non-party backups and run Violent Animus Shot, and you're also getting hits off that too. While Party Bomb isn't a unique or hidden strategy, it's been a hot minute since it's been relevant. I'd also run this specific strategy in Elder Toguro because of the ability to play a copy of Grovekeepers from discard, and that adds a layer of consistency to an already kinda manic strategy. Chu is just alright. I like the idea of running an alternate win con, and seeing as Jiro's applause counters aren't in Standard anymore, and my Spreading the Word deck is in Hero 2 only, he's the only one that I can really run. Again, short explanation because there's not much more to say about this guy. Here's Haidan, but better. Being in 2 of the 3 symbols Haidan's in, he's got access to basically everything I was running in Haidan, but where Joker shines is being able to hit the remove even more consistently. While Haidan can bulk remove cards, he needs time to get going. Joker can do it anytime he fails a check. Running Stabbing Dagger, Dimensional Sphere, Disintegration, Invite Hell, and basically anything else that gets your opponent to mill, discard, and remove is what you need to make him work. His enhance to check a 6 to make a player burn, draw, and discard is fine, but it's a check, meaning it can be failed, and that's how my Joker works. With no 6 checks in this deck, there's just no way of accidentally passing this. To me, Joker's enhance is just mill 1, your opponent removes the top card of their deck. Not a fantastic character, but in my opinion is one of the better keyword-centric characters in Standard right now. There's a lot of big keyword cards in her symbol like Patchwork Baby, Barrier Buster, and Bladed Uppercut, meaning she can have a static online in 1 or 2 attacks. Plus, being in Chaos allows for momentum generation to really let those keyword abilities shine. Out of the 2 DC characters, she is far weaker, and why she's a 7-hander with 19 health I have no idea, and probably isn't going to be picked over Joker, but I think she could be a fun upset still. If there's one thing that Reina Kaiju has taught me, specifically with Protector of Life, is to never underestimate Breaker, so being able to give Breaker to any high or low block is pretty cool. I also think that a fair amount of charge and range attacks have been added to Skull Power that could give Suyu one last hurrah. However, besides the Breaker ability, she doesn't have too much more going for her, which is the only downside, but it's still a significant one. I love Rikyu. I think she's so dumb, making boring nothing attacks into something playable. Reign of Kaiju added a bunch of empty attacks like multiple interlocking rockets and repelling fire, as well as deflect cards which buffs her response. The 5-hander is rough, but card draw is fairly easy these days, so it's barely an issue. And as a nice buff from Ryukyu 1, allowing 1 ability over having to use cards with none just makes her playable card pool significantly higher. While she's not pulling off crazy numbers or doing weird disruptive things, I feel that she could be a really fun pick. Like with Harley, keywords are great, and with Blasting Off, Bladed Uppercut, and Monster vs Machine existing, she has more at her disposal than ever. There's also been a huge amount of great weapon and tech attacks added recently too, but once again she could be a little limited and predictable, so maybe not the best for what I want to do with her. Mirko is my second favourite My Hero Academia character, so I couldn't go to qualifiers without considering giving her one last hurrah. Mirko would likely be the character that plays most to their standard counterpart. We're talking Besiege, Wish Hard, a Wine Opener or 2, could even go for 100 lightning kicks. Alternatively, and this would be a little harder to pull off, there is a chance I could get an Oxygen Destroyer loop going if I'm able to destroy a few of my opponent's foundations. So those were the 19 or so I was considering. I spoke about this issue with a friend of the channel, Susichi, and she helped narrow it down to these 10. I think that this cut down did eliminate the ones I was unsure about, and that upon writing the script for this video, noticed that I didn't have much to say about them. I think I agree with all these cuts except Leatherhead, who I personally would have picked over Angrius. But now I think I'm at the most time consuming part of this journey and where this video will end. I think the only way to know which of these characters I like will be to make decks about them, tweak them, grind them out and just see what feels right. So I'll leave this as an unofficial part 1 to the EU qualified deck video that I'll make. But with all that being said, are there any characters you think have unorthodox strategies? Is there any strange tech I'm missing with those I've eliminated? Are there underrated characters I'm glancing over in making this video? I want to hear your thoughts down below. Be sure to like, subscribe, algorithm boost, all that jazz. I still don't know how to end videos. Bye.